Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Right, let's take a look at every Premier League club and find the last bid they rejected that really they should have accepted. This is a rejected bid that probably makes their accountants feel like throwing up in a lunchbox. Right, let's go. Arsenal, ALEXIS Sanchez, 50 million.
Arsenal reject 50 million bid for ALEXIS Sanchez from Man City.
Yeah, I remember when this happened in August 2017 and Arsenal fans actually celebrated. I bet they were pretty proud of their club for turning down such a fat paycheck for their best player, but good Christ, this actually turned out to be one of the most embarrassing financial decisions of all time. Sanchez in mid-2017 was a washed up baked potato. He only ever scored 7 more goals for the club before being dumped on a Manchester piano for free. Instead of cashing in for 50 million quid, a transfer fee that would have bought them Riyad Mahrez, they instead settled for Henrik Mkhitaryan in a swap deal, an Armenian winger who by then was also up past that lump of kidneys. Aston Villa, Jordan AMAVI, 25 million.
Aston Villa owner Tony ZAHA rejects £25 million offer for Jordan AMAVI.
In a world of financially sound billionaires operating in football, how can some of them have the decision making of a dyslexic chimpanzee?
Don't bother reading this. I can tell we've rejected an offer of £25 million for Jordan AMAVI. He will grow bigger at AVFC.
By grow bigger, clearly the man must have meant this French left back would finish 13th in the championship under Steve Bruce before being immediately sold to Marseille for just £7 million. Good Christ, if you just cashed in when you had the chance, he'd have been the second most expensive departure in the history of your club. Just utter nonsense. Brighton, Ben White, 25 million. Okay, this is controversial because yes, Ben White is a top defender and most definitely a future England international, but I have a feeling this Graham Potter circus is going to end in flames. If not relegation this season, then most definitely the next. I can just see White being sold for a cut price, 10 million quid in a fire sale after a failed promotion bid, meaning they might look back at this monster Leeds bid and regret not taking it. Burnley, James TARKOWSKI, 31 million. Yeah, remember when Burnley turned down 3 bids from West Ham for James TARKOWSKI last summer? The last one being 31 million pounds. Apparently Burnley wanted 50 million. 50 million pounds for a 28-year-old mid-table centre half who's going to go to his grave with less caps for England than any drink water. Good Christ, just sell the man and pocket the 31 million pounds. It's a fat sum of cash. Chelsea, Diego Costa, 80 million.
Chelsea reject 80 million bid from China for Diego Costa.
Yeah, back in January 2017, with Diego Costa on course for 25 goals, with Chelsea winning the league, I can understand why they might have wanted to keep him. But within 6 months, Conte had fallen out with Costa, was leaving him out of his squad and telling him to leave the club, which he did, returning to Atletico Madrid for 50 million pounds. Roman Abramovich is a ruthless Russian billionaire, so when Conte ostracised a player he just turned 80 million pounds down for, oh, he probably felt like punching him in the teeth. Crystal Palace, WILFRIED, ZAHA, 70 million. Listen, I realise WILFRIED ZAHA is by far and away Crystal Palace's best player, but I maintain this sort of offer could have allowed Roy Hodgson to completely revamp his squad. In August 2019, Everton bid 70 million pounds plus James McCarthy and Cheick Tosun, 2 players Palace ended up signing anyway. Good Christ, instead of relying on ZAHA to stay fit, instead of placing your survival hopes on the shoulder of just one man, Christ, they should have just taken the 70 million quid and signed the likes of Jared Bowen, Ivan Toney and Sai Benrahma from the lower leagues, and suddenly that's a much more healthy looking team. Good Christ, what are Palace going to do when ZAHA turns 30 and gets out of breath when he pours a bowl of Weetabix? Are you just going to roll over and die? Everton, Ross Barkley, 25 million. Yeah, here's an example of Everton flushing 10 million quid down the toilet. Here they were in August 2017 and rejecting Chelsea's 25 million pound bid for Ross Barkley, only to sell him 4 months later for just 15 million pounds. So I'm guessing whoever's idea was to turn down that fat paycheck in the summer, I'm pretty sure the billionaire owner probably demanded they have their pet cat stuffed in a dishwasher. Fulham, Alexander Mitrovic, 50 million.
Fulham reject £50 million offer for Alexander Mitrovic from Chinese club Guangzhou Evergrande.
This makes zero sense. Listen, I realise Alexander Mitrovic is a prolific championship goal scorer, but 6 years after his move to Newcastle, I think we can all agree now that he stumbles about the Premier League like a constipated postbox. The man isn't suited for the Premier League and now finds himself stuffed on Scott Parker's bench. And yet 2 years ago, you were rejecting a mammoth 50 million quid for, let's be honest, a championship player. Whoever decided to say no, please give your head a shake because you sound like you have a brain made of scrambled egg. Leeds, Pontus Jansson, 10 million. Yeah, back in August 2018, apparently Leeds turned down a 10 million pound bid from Russian club Krasnodar for good old Pontus Jansson. To be fair, the Swede would probably have jumped at the move. He'd have been able to cram Champions League football down his throat before he retires. The reason they rejected the bid was for him to help them get promoted, right? Well, the 18-19 season just finished in playoff failure before realising they didn't need him after all and just bin him off to Brentford for 3 million quid. They should have just taken the 10 million pounds and run. Leicester, Islam Slimani, 38 million.
Leicester reject £38 million bid from Tianjin Quanjin for Islam Slimani.
Arguably the worst decision in the list. Listen, Leicester are a well-oiled machine and usually make the sensible choices, but here, good Christ, yes, they'd spunk 30 million pounds up a tree on panic by Islam Slimani in the summer of 2016, but 4 months later, they were being offered a get-out clause, 38 million pounds from China to just forget Slimani ever existed. But no, thanks to their stubbornness, they kept him on the books for another 4 goddamn years. He only ever scored 8 league goals before leaving for free. So essentially, Leicester just chewed up a nearly £40 million paycheck, Ridiculous. Liverpool, DEJAN, LOVREN, 20 million. Yeah, go back 2 years and DEJAN LOVREN was the subject of a £20 million bid from AC Milan. And lads, they should have just let him go. I know it was handy keeping him around as squad depth for the winning Premier League title season, but still, he only played 10 games and one of them he was utterly dominated by Troy Deeney. He's since been sold to Zenit St. Petersburg for half the price they could have got for him, so really, was it worth keeping him? Man City, Leroy Sané, 70 million.
Manchester City turned down £70.7 million bid for Leroy Sané from Bayern Munich.
Okay, listen, at the time, in May 2019, just days after a Premier League title win, this would have made sense. Good Christ, I rate Leroy Sané and think City should have kept the man at all costs. Pep Guardiola should have just locked him in the basement and fed him apple cores and shredded newspaper all summer. Anything to keep him at the Etihad, but in hindsight, they should have just accepted the £70 million bid, because within 6 weeks, he was snapping his leg in the Community Shield, meaning he only ever played one more game for the club before being sold to Bayern the next summer for a cup price 40 million quid. Man United, Adnan Januzaj, 40 million. Yeah, going back to January 2014 here, and apparently Man United were rejecting a £40 million bid from PSG. I realise this teenage winger was the only ray of sunshine under that depressing David Moyes era, but I'm sorry, a couple of goals against Sunderland does not warrant a £40 million price tag, and 5 countries fighting over his passport. This matchstick ended up failing on loan at Borussia Dortmund and Sunderland, before eventually being sold 3 years later for almost a nothing fee. Oh Christ, they should have just cashed in on PSG stupidity. Newcastle, Jamal LASCELLES, 25 million. Listen, I realise that Newcastle wanted to keep their captain at all costs, and on the face of it, rejecting a £25 million bid from West Ham for Jamal LASCELLES in July 2018 probably looked like a positive thing. But good Christ, the man is a popular figure, but not worth a penny over £12 million. They could have just got outside Johnny Evans instead. Sheffield United, nobody. Okay, good news Sheffield United, you've been a financially clever football club for the last few years. You've always seemed to cash in at the right time, so there weren't really any rejected bids that you should regret. Moving on, Southampton, Che Adams, 20 million. Fair play to Southampton for refusing to accept they messed up on Che Adams. In January 2020, the £20 million buy from Birmingham City hadn't scored a single goal yet, and so Leeds offered 3 bids, including a proposed loan move with the option to buy for £20 million upon promotion. And I'm sorry, I know he's improved since then, but good Christ, the Saints should have just taken the money and run. He's a centre forward with just 8 league goals in nearly 50 games. I mean, come on. Tottenham, Eric Dyer, 50 million. Listen, I realise Jose Mourinho probably fantasises in the bath to thoughts of Eric Dyer. I love Jose, but considering he obsesses over such a limited player like Dyer, and yet chucks one of England's most naturally talented midfielders in a dumpster, it just seems a bit weird. Apparently he was also behind a £50 million bid to take Dyer to Old Trafford in July 2017, and let's be honest, Spurs should have taken the cash. I know he's since converted into a centre half, but honestly, the man isn't worth a penny over £20 million. He's the modern day version of John O'Shea, a player who took him until 30 before anyone realised his best position. West Brom, Johnny Evans, 23 million. Yeah, remember the summer of 2017 when Johnny Evans was at the centre of a transfer tug of war between Leicester and Man City? Good Christ, the Foxes had a £21 million bid turned down for him. Massive financial mistake. West Brom's decision to keep the man did not pay off. They finished bottom of the league, losing nearly 20 games that season. Oh yeah, and Evans reportedly stole a taxi in Spain. You could have pocketed the cash and chucked a dilapidated pigeon at centre back, and they couldn't possibly have finished any lower. Oh yeah, and Leicester wound up buying him anyway, for just 3 million. Good Christ, West Brom. West Ham, Marko Arnautovic, 35 million. Yeah, here we have a perfect example of West Ham making a mess of their finances. In January 2019, the club refused to learn from the Dimitri Payet saga and chose to bottle a £35 million bid from China. Did they really think that appealed to Marko Arnautovic's senses aside and managed to convince him to stay? No, offer that man Chinese wages and he's ready to stuck his ambition down the sink. He signed a new contract, but his form fell off a cliff, didn't score until the second last game of the season, before being allowed to leave for just £22 million in the summer, where he's since gone on to pollute his kidneys with 7-Up and Burger King, showing Chinese football the same respect Bill Cosby usually shows his dates. Wolves, Raul Jimenez, 30 million. Again, Wolves couldn't have predicted that Raul Jimenez would soon nearly break his skull like a Scotch egg, but apparently in the summer, Wolves rejected a £30 million bid from Juventus, which included Aaron Ramsey. With Jimenez now nursing a permanent headache and the club forced to panic back from Spain, I'm pretty sure they'd regret not taking the cash and running. Anyway, that's the end of it. Something to do. What do you think? What player are you regret not selling when you had the chance? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.